Cool rendition of that. Let's see. Heavenly shades of night are falling. It's twilight time. Out of the mist your voice is calling. It's twilight time. Babadoo, for each day I pray for evening, just to be with you, babadoo, together at last at twilight time.
When we built the current studio east of Austin, we dedicated the second floor as a studio and as a place to display the collection of vintage recording equipment. It was fun to design the studio so that we had conduits under the floor for cabling, and we had dedicated power to the floor, and we did acoustical treatment basically around in the walls and under the floor. The studio part really is a working editing suite for our video work on Final Cut Pro. And then the other part where we would have voiceover recording and a small band recording, as well as the display area for a lot of the tape recorders. We have several Webster Chicago wire recorders in our collection. The Webster Chicago Corporation of Chicago, Illinois, later known as Webcore, was a leading manufacturer of consumer and business electronics for more than half a century, from 1914 to the late 1960s. Their product line included phonographs, recording equipment, public address systems, amplifiers, intercoms, and power supplies. In 1925, the first factory-built radios in this country included V battery eliminators and power packs made by Webster Chicago. In 1926, the company designated and produced amplification equipment. We have one of their amplifiers in our collection. In 1945, Webster Chicago became a licensee of the Armor Research Foundation and began manufacturing wire recorders, the first product being a version of the Armor military wire sound recorder, which it sold to the U.S. Navy. After the war, Webster Chicago introduced a whole new product line oriented toward the civilian market. The Webster Chicago brand was one of the top-selling wire recorders. The company specialized in models for both office dictation and for the private consumer market. The steel wire in these wire recorders had a diameter of 0.0036 inches, and it traveled past the recording head at an average of 24 inches a second. The Webster wire recorder was built from 1947 to 1952. This particular wire recorder is made by Webster Chicago. It's called the 180-1. This unit cost $149 when it was new. The unit has a wire running from this reel to a take-up spool, and this is a bobbin, much like you would find in a sewing machine. If I put this in the fast wind, you'll see that the bobbin starts going up and down.
Why, I wouldn't give a nickel for your life or your eyes either. Well, I'll take all the risk, Cal. Don't worry about it.
To put the unit into rewind, you push the little button and away it goes. To play back the unit, you simply have to push the button and put it into play.
What's up? Sorry, Cal. I've got to talk to you. I can't risk going back to your jail. You put that gun away, you damn savage.
Note the light reacting.
Come on inside. All right.
So there was actually a light meter to judge the recording levels, and later they added this unit, which gave you a meter to do the record levels, and it also allowed you to switch between record and playback, which was quite innovative. This is the microphone that came with it, a very unique 50s style. The wire itself is incredibly thin, so if the wire broke, you had a little point that would come through when you wanted to listen to the reel. Here we have another one of the Webster Chicago wire recorders. Meter built into the front, as were the controls. You can see below the lid for the 180, which has additional reels available. It's one of the wire recorder boxes. This is another wire recorder by Webster Chicago, which we have in the collection. While we're talking about Webster Chicago, we have an amplifier mixer, the 2L25, an old tube amplifier in the collection. The production of the Webster Chicago recorders ran from about 1945 through the early 1950s. In 1952, the company launched a new line of tape recorders and eventually discontinued its production of the wire recorders. It was that same year, 1952, that Webster Chicago changed their name to Webcore. Interestingly, on this particular model, the 2110, which is in our collection, they have both the logo of the Webster Chicago Corporation and the new Webcore name. Webcore's Model 210 was the first tape recorder built for the consumer market with dual record play heads and two balanced induction motors. This would allow for playing the tape in both directions without having to turn the reels over by hand. This is the Webcore micro recorder. Uses 3-inch reels, runs at 3 3/4, 1 7/8. I mentioned the story about the Believers. Well, the Webcore recorder that my parents bought me for graduation, or went in with me in graduation, was similar to this Webcore Squire. It is a one-motor unit. It is not professional, but at the time, the fact that you could do sound on sound or do harmony recording made it really neat. So this is the unit that Granger, Hunt, and I started working on. It has separate volume and tone controls for each channel. Here's a closer look at the green eye, magic eye, some called it, that indicated your recording levels. And again, if it crossed, you would know that your volume was too high. It would also allow you to monitor recording by turning the monitor off or on, and then you could actually hear what was actually coming through the recorder. And using headphones, you could then listen to one channel while you're recording on the other, and it would sync them up so that you could do sound with sound. And then you could just switch back to play on both channels. The mechanism basically allowed you to fast forward with this lever or rewind. And the unit did have a really good sound system. 3-speed unit, so it's going to play 1 7/8, 3 3/4, and 7.5 inches per second. It also had a switch up here on top of the heads that allowed you to play back 2-track and 4-track tapes. The microphones that came with the unit were not exactly high-tech. These were microphones that I used initially, and then I acquired a Shure 556 and an Electro Voice 665 that greatly improved our recording quality. Early on, tape recorder manufacturers included these little mics with most of their recorders because nobody had anything else to record with. But as time went on, you started getting decks that did not have microphones, allowing you to go buy your own. The fact that this unit was self-contained, could play back on location, had its own amplifier and speaker system, was quite a plus as far as a place to start. This unit is a Webcore Professional. It was the last Webcore built. Its design was really unique in that it looked like a computer recorder. The electronics in this unit were really more high-tech. The mechanism was more or less what Webcore had been using for quite a while. We have upgraded our Webcore Professional and obtained a unit that had the speakers, which do sound pretty incredible. We had a letter from Bill Carpenter, who was an engineer for Webcore, and was aware of how hard they had worked on these speakers to make them close to what the AR2s were, especially on the high end. The unit does sound really good. Unfortunately, the transport does distract because it is quite noisy. The prior owner had obviously not wanted the control panel to drop down because he had blocked it with a couple of wooden blocks. Couldn't figure out why it wouldn't drop down. Once we got into it, we found out when we were doing some cleaning and oiling. He also replaced the counter, evidently the push button counter had gone out. After he'd taken out the old push button, he put in one with the dial and redid a little configuration, which looks a little messy on the front. We're happy to have this unit in the collection and working. So we were able to get the reel retainers and documentation for the first time in this unit. The hinges for the speakers actually provide the contacts for the amplifier to the speakers.